The defense team for Alex Murdaugh has rested in the state of South Carolina's murder case against the disgraced attorney. Prosecutors allege Murdaugh, the descendant of a powerful South Carolina legal dynasty, shot and killed his wife and son at the family's home in 2021 in a failed effort to distract from the discovery he had embezzled millions of dollars, mostly from clients.
Since proceedings began, Murdaugh has been caught in a number of lies, including about his location on the day of the killings. Joining us now to fill us in on the rest of the case is NewsNation senior national correspondent Brian Entin. Brian, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we have not yet really covered this case. So for our viewers who maybe just be tuning in for the first time, give us the nuts and bolts of what is alleged.
I mean, there are so many twists and turns with this case and with this family. You mentioned it, the Murdaugh family, legal dynasties in this part of South Carolina where I am in the Low Country. I'm in Colleton County, South Carolina. This is the courthouse behind me where the trial is happening right now. Essentially, he has now admitted to stealing millions and millions of dollars from his clients over the last decade or so. Poor people who he was supposed to be helping after they, had falls and personal injuries and car accidents. It now turns out that he was actually stealing that settlement money. And then after that, he was accused of killing his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul, out at their hunting farm, which is called Moselle, which is just about 30 minutes from where I'm standing. His defense all along has been that he was close to his family, that he would never have done that it may have been someone else from their sordid past, because this family has had so much drama in this area. But the prosecution says he was actually trying to gain sympathy in light of all of those financial crimes and his family really, losing a lot of their prestige in this area when those financial crimes came to light.
So part of what's so interesting about this story is that as horrific as the present charges are, the murder of the wife and the son, this is hardly the first time death and scandal has touched this family. There was the 2015 death, a hit-and-run death of Stephen Smith, the death of Gloria Satterfield in 2018. Can you run through why it is that this case is so gripping and kind of the long history of legal entanglements that this family has been a part of?
Yeah, it's been really interesting covering the trial because a lot of that stuff doesn't come out in court in relation to this specific case with Maggie and Paul Murdaugh's deaths. But there's so much that has gone on beyond this that the jury does know about in terms of these very, very shady deaths over the years involving this family. You mentioned the housekeeper. They had this longtime housekeeper out at their house who was really like a member of their family, a nanny to their children. She mysteriously fell down the stairs and died. And then Alex Murdaugh, who's now on trial for the murders of his wife and son, actually talked her family into, suing his insurance company. And then he stole some of that money, which was just a whole crazy ordeal. Also, Paul Murdaugh, who's the victim here, who's Alex's son, was in this boat crash and was allegedly behind the wheel and drunk, crashed into a bridge, which killed one of his young friends named Mallory Beach. The family allegedly tried to cover all of that up. And then you talked about Stephen Smith, which was this other young man in this area who mysteriously was found in the middle of the road. At first, they thought it was a hit and run, but now there's all sorts of questions. They've reopened the investigation. Rumors swirl about whether that death may be involving one of Alex Murdaugh's other sons. There's no shortage of sort of controversy involving this family. And that's why I think, especially in this area, like all eyes are on what's happening in the courthouse behind.
So the big news from a few days ago was that Murdaugh essentially admitted, correct, that he was not honest with prosecutors about, or with the police rather, about a number of details. If you want to believe still in his innocence, you'd have to believe that he lied about all sorts of things, but did not lie about committing the actual killings. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so there's this one big lie that a lot of this is really going to come down to. The jury is obviously going to analyze. Basically, in the beginning, Alex Murdaugh said that he was not at the property where the murders happened right before they happened. Then this video surfaced from social media that his son had taken, where you can see him and where you can hear his voice. And so now on the stand, Alex Murdaugh has said, actually, I did lie. He's admitted to lying. And again, this has so many weird twists and turns. But he says the reason he lied is because he is a drug addict, was addicted to pain pills, was used to lying over and over again, trying to cover up his addiction. So he says when the police first showed up after the murders, it was sort of his natural inclination to lie because he was used to lying to his family and friends about the pain pill addiction, and that's the reason he lied. Will the jury actually buy that? We'll probably know soon because this trial could wrap up by the end of the week. But it's taken so many twists and turns. I mean, this was supposed to go on for 3 weeks, and we're now into week 6.
And again, for those folks who haven't been following the story closely, could you give us a little bit of detail about how the murders were alleged to have happened?
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions there, too. So, again, the Moselle property, which is the family's hunting property in the country about 10 minutes from I'm standing outside the courthouse. The murders happened on the property near some dog kennels. But the experts say that mother and son were killed with likely 2 different weapons, which has caused a lot of questions about how that may have happened. There's no real hard evidence, tangible evidence that connects Alex Murdaugh to the murders. Like there's no video, there's no fingerprints, nothing like that, which is what's going to make it difficult for the jury here. And then what was interesting is yesterday, last week, likely of the trial, the defense puts on this witness who now says that this is a forensic expert that they believe that it may have actually been 2 people who killed Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. So all sorts of theories flying. I think that's why there's so much interest in the case, because no one really knows which way it's going to go with the jury.
So has the defense strategy been to kind of confuse the issue? Like, well, what about this? What about this? Can you really say for sure it was Murdaugh because, raising the possibility of another killer, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And it is confusing. I mean, even covering it from the outside and knowing the case pretty well, there's been days where I'm confused and I'm wondering what direction are they going in? And then I just think about this jury who, again, they've spent 6 weeks hearing all sorts of theories, hearing all about the lies. He's admitted to some lies. He hasn't admitted to some lies. But what's interesting is likely tomorrow, the jury's going to get the chance to go out sort of like a field trip and tour the Moselle hunting property and actually go to the place where the murders happened, which is somewhat unusual. I mean, it's happened before. It happened in the OJ case. It's happened in other cases. It happened in Parkland down in Florida. But it doesn't happen all the time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with the jury actually going out there to the site.
What are people saying with respect to motive? I know that there's this kind of conversation about the embezzlement, $8.5 million in theft. It's a part of the picture, but is it being connected? Are those financial crimes being tied directly to any kind of motive to kill the wife and son, as though they were, there's an allegation that they were going to rat on him or somehow expose him or anything like that?
Not so much rat on him or expose him, but it is connected to the prosecution sort of theory through all of this. What they've told the jury is they believe that because of all the financial crimes and because it was all unraveling and, Alex Murdaugh had been kicked out of his law firm that had his name. It was the Murdaugh law firm. They kicked him out. The detectives were coming down on him. It was all starting to unravel. They were starting to realize just how much money he had stolen. And the prosecution theory here that they're hoping that the jury will buy is that Alec was looking for sympathy and everyone was starting to turn on him in this community where he had once been this big name. And as a way to garner that sympathy and get his name back, he thought by killing his wife and son, it may do that people would feel sorry for him. So that's sort of what the prosecution has pushed for the last 6 weeks.
Incredible. Well, thank you, Brian, so much for joining us to discuss the case. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll have more Rising right after this.